PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Follow us on social media at Vegas Hockey Hub and follow your host at Ian Rachiele18. Also follow the show at PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, and follow their social media at PR Connections Radio. And it is time to do our NHL Offseason review. And it has been an excellent situation going on with the preview. And I will say that when it comes to everything going on there, I'm going to look at every team, and we're going to start out with the Pacific, move over to Central, then go to the Metro, then go to the Atlantic. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be exciting to watch here on Vegas Hockey Hub, here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. So we're going to kick this off by going to the Anaheim Ducks. And the Anaheim Ducks, they have done some really good work. I look at what they have done, and they are doing exceptionally well. And I will say that when it comes to what's going on there, I like what Anaheim did. I'm giving them an A for this current situation. Now, for example, them extending Troy Terry to a 7x7, that was an amazing move by Anaheim. A very solid deal. There's an Anaheim Ducks team that's building on their young talent, and having Troy Terry to be on that first line for the next 7 years, that is an incredible deal by Anaheim. I like what they did there. I also can respect signing two solid veterans in Alex Killorn and in Radko Gudas. Now, I know there's going to be some people who don't like the fact that Anaheim is getting a little bit older, but I'm going to disagree on this and give the reason why. This is an Anaheim Ducks team that has so many young players in the locker room that you do need one or two veterans on that team. You don't have Getzlaf, you don't have Corey Perry, you don't have Timo anymore. There isn't really any established veterans in the locker room out there in Anaheim. So they go out and they get two veterans in Killorn and out there in Gudas. Now, the roster itself is pretty solid. I am a big fan of Leo Carlsson. I think what he is doing second overall is going to be pretty good for the Anaheim Ducks. I'm a big fan of what Leo Carlsson has to offer. You also have Mason McTavish. You have Trevor Zegras. There's so much young talent on the Anaheim Ducks roster. So it makes a lot of sense that they are getting younger. They bring in some veterans, and they're going to do pretty well out there. Anaheim, they get an A here on Vegas Hockey Hub. So moving over and continuing with the Pacific, the Calgary Flames, they get a C. Look, they made some very small moves on both sides. You lose Tyler Toffoli, you trade him to New Jersey, but you get Sharanovich back in the deal. They do draft Hornick, 16th overall, and really they just made some small moves to the bottom six, maybe added some extra muscle to the AHL out there at the Calgary Wranglers. So with Calgary, there really isn't much to say positive or negative. They kind of just neutral. Therefore, I give Calgary a C for their offseason review. The next team in the Pacific that we need to go over, a team that I am not impressed with at all, and that is the Edmonton Oilers. Now, if I was going to give any team Fs, I probably would have had Edmonton on there, but I don't believe in giving Fs to a off-season review because anything can happen the very next year. So I always go A, B, C, or D. And the Edmonton Oilers, they get a D-. Look, I'm not intrigued by any of these moves. None of them stand out to me at all. It seems like they're just putting a Band-Aid on a wound. I mean, this is a Edmonton Oilers team that has Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, two of the best talent in hockey, and yet they're just being surrounded by guys on the bottom six or people who are bottom six talent being put in the middle six. Connor Brown, hopefully he can pan out, but I don't see much there. The defense, I still have no expectations at all. I have no intrigue about their defense out there in Edmonton. And the goaltending situation, hopefully Stuart Skinner can continue getting better in year 2. But yeah, based off of this offseason, the moves that they made, there really isn't anything spectacular going on in Edmonton. So I give a D- to the Edmonton Oilers. Los Angeles Kings, I am a huge fan of what they did this offseason. They actually get my first A+ on this offseason review. I say bringing back Anze Kopitar, bringing back their captain, the stalwart of the LA Kings, was a fantastic move. He is a leader in the locker room. He is one of the best leaders in the NHL. Very good move to bring him back. Making a trade and getting Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Winnipeg Jets. Yes, you did have to give up 2 solid guys that are future assets, but it will be worth it in the long-term future when Pierre-Luc Dubois is scoring goals over and over again out there at the Staples Center in LA. I also will say the trade to trade Sean Walker and Cal Peterson out there to Philadelphia. Look, they had to make room. They had to make some moves that really mattered. Losing Sean Walker, losing Cal Peterson. It makes a lot of sense as to why it happened. And when it comes to the LA Kings, that young team that they have currently on that roster, I see a lot of potential. And with them being a playoff team the past 2 seasons, we know what their goal is with all these moves, especially getting a veteran goaltender in Cam Talbot. Their goal is essentially go to a Stanley Cup or bust out there in LA. That's what they're focusing on. That's why they, a year ago, got Kevin Fiala. That's why they had Philip Deneau. There's so much talent being put on the LA Kings. They are in win now mode, and I absolutely love it. So the LA Kings get a A+ here on our NHL offseason review. The San Jose Sharks are the next team, and they will get an A- from me here on their offseason review. Obviously, losing Erik Karlsson in a trade to Pittsburgh. They did get some good assets back. That first-round pick that they got from Pittsburgh is going to be magic beans. We don't know how Pittsburgh is going to do this upcoming year. Could be good, could be bad. I will also say getting some solid veterans in Mikael Granlund, Jan Rata, Mike Hoffman, getting Anthony Duclair in a trade from the Florida Panthers. Look, San Jose Sharks are in a rebuild mode. They have a lot of young talent. I like the first-round pick and Will Smith they did earlier in the NHL draft. So San Jose rebuilding. They're still in the middle of a rebuild, but the assets they got back in an Erik Karlsson trade and the assets that they acquired over the past 2 months, I like the direction San Jose is going. I think there's a lot of upside. There's a lot of good potential here with the San Jose Sharks. They get an A- here on our offseason review for 2023. The Seattle Kraken, the team out there in Seattle, they're ending year number 3 in the NHL. And the Seattle Kraken, they get an A+ here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm going to say them extending Vince Dunn is an excellent move. He's a solid and very underrated defenseman. Bringing over Dumoulin from the Pittsburgh Penguins, that's going to make some solid moves there. And yes, losing Carson Soucy, losing some guys on the defensive end, that's going to suck a little bit. But what I like about Seattle and what I like about Ron Francis, he is making small but important moves year after year after year. Look, Seattle has a very good farm system. Seattle is building with their future assets, so they're not going out and not doing what Vegas did. The Seattle Kraken isn't going out and getting every big free agent possible. That's not what Seattle's trying to do. What Seattle is doing is they're bringing in a few holes. They're patching up some holes here and there. But Seattle is also building from within, and they're building by the draft. So based off of what Seattle has accomplished, they get an A+ here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I am very happy to see what Seattle is doing, and I like the direction moving forward. Another team that I find very interesting and a team I see has some good potential is Vancouver. This is a Vancouver Canucks team, and a lot of people expected them to rebuild, a lot of them to tear it down. And this is a team that has made some small moves here and there. But what Vancouver has done is essentially bring in some assets to replace the assets that are coming out. They have them buying out Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That was a solid move, a move that should have been done a year ago, but they finally got it done. They bring in Carson Soucy. They bring in Ian Cole to help out with the defense. So when it comes to Vancouver, you still have Elias Peterson. You still have some good talent like Brock Besser on that team. So I say for Vancouver, they really didn't have to do much this offseason, but they made it count, and they made some very strategic moves out there in Vancouver. I give them an A+. And the Vegas Golden Knights are Vegas Golden Knights, the Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. They get an A. They extended Ivan Barbashev to a 5x5, and I am an absolute fan of this deal. I love what Vegas did. Barbashev is kind of a younger version of what Riley Smith was. He's solid on the back check. He's somebody that can bring a lot of attention to that top six and definitely be a first-line winger here in Vegas. You extend Aiden Hill. You bring him back to be the 1A, 1B alongside Logan Thompson. Brett Howden to be a middle six center. Now, yes, losing Riley Smith is unfortunate and definitely stings as a fan, but business is a business. Sports is a business. Riley Smith had to be traded to make the cap space for Ivan Barbashev. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what Vegas does long term, and more importantly, it's going to be fascinating to see how Vegas does with the cap space heading into the beginning of the season. After all, it looks like they might have to make one more trade or one more cap dump before opening night. But your Vegas Golden Knights get an A. So let's recap the Pacific Division. You had the Anaheim Ducks at an A. Solid moves there. I love the Troy Terry extension. Calgary Flames get a C. Really didn't do much besides trading Tyler Toffoli. So they kind of get a C, kind of meh. Really didn't do much. Edmonton Oilers were very underwhelming. I'm not a fan of any of the moves they made. LA Kings get an A+. I love a lot of the moves they've made. They're trying to go all in for a Stanley Cup. At this point, it is Stanley or bust out there in LA. You also had San Jose Sharks. They tried to get a lot of assets back in the Erik Karlsson deal. And with that young farm system they have and drafting Will Smith in the past draft, the San Jose Sharks have a bright future ahead in the NHL. Seattle Kraken get an A+. They are building off of that second round elimination. They extended the defense, which was a weakness for them. And I like what Seattle has in terms of future assets. Vancouver Canucks, they get an A+. This is a team that's not rebuilding, but instead they are just retooling and trying to work some stuff around. The Oliver Ekman-Larsson buyout, definitely a great move. And the Vegas Golden Knights getting an A by Vegas Hockey Hub. I love the Barbashev signing. Aiden Hill coming back is solid. Unfortunate about Riley Smith, but sports is a business. Now, getting over to the central side here on Vegas Hockey Hub as we're doing our NHL offseason review. Arizona Coyotes get an A-. Them bringing over Matt Dumba, bringing over Jason Zucker. It feels like for the first time in a long time, the Arizona Coyotes are actually trying to be competitive. It's been about 5 or 6 years since the last time the Coyotes made a playoff run. So extending their Rookie of the Year candidate last year in Maselli and bringing over Connor Ingram and having him be extended since coming over from Nashville, that was smart. Having Logan Cooley, their former top pick back in 2022, that is going to be a good move in the long-term future. And Alexander Kerfoot, I actually do have some praise for him. I like his potential. Hopefully he can turn it around in Arizona. So I will say for the Arizona Coyotes, I give them an A-. They made some very solid moves here at the NHL offseason. Chicago Blackhawks, this is going to be controversial, but the Chicago Blackhawks get a C-. Look, you draft Connor Bedard, you win the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, you trade for Josh Bailey, and then you buy out Josh Bailey. You trade for Corey Perry, you get Nick Foligno, you get Taylor Hall. You don't re-sign Jonathan Toews, you don't re-sign Patrick Kane. I mean, when it comes to Chicago Blackhawks, Connor Bedard is what kind of saves it from being in the D tier because I'm not a fan of what Chicago Blackhawks have done. I look at the moves Chicago Blackhawks made, and I am not impressed by a lot of it. So I will say, when it comes to Chicago Blackhawks, congrats on Connor Bedard. Hopefully, he could be your savior, your face of the franchise for the next decade. But yeah, I was not impressed by any of these moves. They just got older, brought in a bunch of veterans I felt was unnecessary. So yeah, Chicago Blackhawks, good for them. But I'm just not impressed by any of these moves at all, except for Connor Bedard. Colorado Avalanche, they get a B. I love the Bowen Byram extension. They get a speedy winger in Miles Wood from the New Jersey Devils. And you know what? Ross Colton, Ryan Johansson, you acquired them in a trade. You do get them from Tampa Bay and Nashville, respectively. I understand that. But I've always wondered, bringing in Jonathan Drouin, you also brought over guys like Jack Johnson. You're having him come back. I'm just really curious what the game plan is for Colorado. Because if their game plan is to go all in and try to win their Stanley Cup, then I would say this definitely is a B tier. But with Colorado, I just kind of question some of these moves. I like Bowen Byram. I like Miles Wood. Ryan Johansson is a bit questionable, but with Gabriel Landeskog being out once again, maybe that's a justification for it. And Ross Colton, I'm not really high on the guy. They did give up a lot for him, but they got a lot of assets back in the Alex Newhook deal. So Colorado, I give them a B just because I'm quite questioning what their motive is heading into next year. The Dallas Stars get a D+. Look, you bring in Matt Duchene, you bring in Craig Smith, you extend Evgeny Dadonov, you bring in Joel Henley back. Look, Dallas would be fine if this was a couple of years ago. If this was 4 to 5 years ago and you're bringing in Dadonov, you're bringing in Duchene, I would absolutely love those moves, but this isn't 2020. This is 2023. And I'm really questioning why a team that went to the Western Conference Finals last year, a team that has such many young assets like Miro Heiskanen, like Jake Ottinger, like Jason Roberson, like this team is loaded with young talent, but yet they're bringing in a bunch of veterans to fill the middle six. I'm not really a fan of it. I don't like the moves here, and a lot of them really puzzle me. So Dallas Stars get a D+. I was not impressed at all with really any of the moves they made this offseason. Minnesota Wild, they get an A here on Vegas Hockey Hub. Getting Philippe Gustafsson back, that is a solid move. They had to get a starting goaltender. You acquire a veteran and a Stanley Cup winner in Patrick Maroon. And I will say that when it comes to the Minnesota Wild, I like the fact that this is a team that knows what they are. Minnesota Wild is a first-round exit in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're not good enough to win a division, but they're not bad enough to tank. So what Minnesota did, because they know where they are, is they went and got one or two assets to help out with the bottom six. Defense is pretty much secure. And the goaltending, you have Gustafsson and you have Marc-Andre Fleury on his swan song. So for Minnesota, I like the moves they made because, once again, it wasn't impactful. It wasn't one of the best moves you could have done. But what I like about it is they know what direction they're going in, and they made the necessary moves to get back into the playoffs. The Nashville Predators get an A+. I love the move with Barry Trotz becoming general manager. Them getting Ryan O'Reilly, getting Luke Shen. This is a team that traded Ryan Johansson to Colorado. I mean, this is a Nashville Predators team that's trying to retool and kind of try to rebuild that roster. I mean, this is a Nashville Predators team that's kind of been directionless for the last couple of years. So for Nashville, I like the moves they made. Very solid moves. And I say that when it comes to Gustav Nyquist, when it comes to Ryan O'Reilly, even bringing back Cody Glass on a 2-year deal, I like the direction they're going, and I say this is a team to watch this upcoming year. Now, this team is interesting to talk about because I have to grade them based off of what they have done. And what they have done is essentially commit to a rebuild. This is a St. Louis Blues team that understands that they are no longer in contention. The St. Louis Blues are not going to be in championship anymore. They're not going to be seeing Gloria during the parade anymore. This is a St. Louis Blues team that understands they're going to take a step back. So they get Kevin Hayes as part of a cap hit. They do lose some assets on the defensive side. But what I like about St. Louis, they got that 10th overall pick. I like who they drafted, by the way. He has some solid upside. So for St. Louis, I give them a B because they're starting that rebuild and they're kind of doing it the right way. And the last team we got to talk about coming out of the Central, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, this is a team that lost in the first round to the Vegas Golden Knights. You trade Pierre-Luc Dubois out there to the LA Kings, but you do get back Alex Iafallo. You do get Gabe Vilardi back in the deal. And I say, based off the talent that they acquired from the LA Kings and the fact that they brought back Logan Stanley as well, I give them a B- simply because this is a team that is starting a rebuild as well. Connor Hellebuck is mostly going to be dealt before the trade deadline. And I like what Winnipeg is doing because it's pretty much establishing the point that we know we're in a rebuild. We know what we're doing. Now we're going to have to go out and do it. So I say for the Winnipeg Jets, they get a B-. They did get some good assets back. So to recap the Central one more time, Arizona Coyotes, they get an A-. Chicago Blackhawks, they get a C+. Colorado Avalanche get a B. Dallas Stars get a D+. Once again, I just wasn't impressed by them at all. Minnesota Wild made some solid moves. They get an A. The St. Louis Blues get a B, starting that rebuild the right way. And the Winnipeg Jets are starting a B-. This season will be fun for them. And we are going to get into the Eastern Conference here. Now, this is going to be more brief than the Western Conference because here on Vegas Hockey Hub, we are out here in the Western Conference, so we focus more attention on what's going on in the West than what's going on in the East. So let's very quickly go over the Eastern Conference. The Boston Bruins, they lose Patrice Bergeron to retirement. David Krejci's gone. You also have Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno. They get dealt out there to Chicago. I mean, they bring back Milan Lucic. They extend Trent Frederick. They extend Jeremy Swayman. The Boston Bruins losing Tyler Bertuzzi and Dmitry Orlov. This is a Boston Bruins team that went all in last year and failed miserably. I give them a C-, and I'm being quite generous with that C+, because this is a Boston Bruins team that just really lost some good talent this offseason. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward, but Boston Bruins get a C+. Buffalo Sabres, they get a B+. I love the moves that they made. They're going in the right direction. This is a Buffalo Sabres team. You draft Zach Benson in the draft. You get Eric Johnson. You get Connor Clifton. But it's clear and obvious they're working on the Owen Power extension. They're working on Rasmus Dahlin, his contract extension. You have young talents in Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson. And Devin Levi is doing solid in net. So Buffalo Sabres get a B+. I like what they did this offseason, trying to get back into the playoffs for the first time in 14 seasons. Carolina Hurricanes get a C-. Now, I'm going to state this for the record. If Sebastian Aho didn't get extended for 8 years, this would have been a D. If it hadn't been for his extension, it wouldn't be a C-. Dmitry Orlov, I don't like the move at all. I think that's too big of a cap hit. Michael Bunting, I don't understand the logic there. You brought back Jordan Stahl because he's your captain. You bring back your starting goalie and Frederik Andersen and your backup at Antti Raanta. But for a team that's been struggling in the playoffs the last 4 or 5 years, it just feels like they're kind of stuck in neutral. There's also the whole Tony DeAngelo situation. So for Carolina, I give them a C-. I was not impressed at all. Outside of the Sebastian Aho move, extending him for 8 years, that is a nice touch. Columbus Blue Jackets, they get a C. Now bringing Damian Severson from the New Jersey Devils, getting Ivan Provorov from the Philadelphia Flyers, getting Adam Ventinelli, third overall. I like those moves. And it would be a B if it hadn't been for who they hired as head coach. I've said this on Vegas Hockey Hub before. I'm not the biggest fan of Mike Babcock. I don't think that he's a great coach for the current time we have in the NHL. Just like John Tortorella in Philadelphia, I think Babcock is similar on that front. He is not going to work in the modern era. That Mike Babcock in 2023 is not going to be as effective as he was in 2008. I don't see it. I don't like the moves that are happening in terms of head coach, and I will not be shocked if he is gone within 2 years. So Columbus Blue Jackets, they get to see the players' moves were fantastic. It's just a head coaching hire that's a bit puzzling. Detroit Red Wings, man, this is disappointing to talk about. Alex DeBrincat is a fantastic move, but unfortunately, they had to give up some very important assets in that deal. And then the signings they made in Detroit, a lot of them make no sense at all. You bring in JT Kumper to a 5x5 to be a middle six forward. I do question how that's going to work out long term. You bring over Justin Holl, who I do wonder how that's going to work out in terms of his age and what he's at his point in his career. But yeah, Detroit Red Wings, Steve Yzerman, I'm not really impressed with most of these moves. I think that they're desperate moves at that. And for a team that's young and a team that's building off that young talent, for them to bring in guys in their late 20s, early 30s, I kind of question the moves here. Florida Panthers, they get a D+. I mean, this is a team that made it to a Stanley Cup final last year, and they just decided to get older and older and older. I mean, this is a team that decided to go doubling down on defense, bringing in defensive-minded players, and I just don't think it's a good move for Florida. I'm not a fan of the moves that they have done, so I say a D+ for Florida. Very disappointing. Montreal Canadiens get an A-. I love the Cole Caulfield deal. I think Alex Newhook is a fantastic trade. And, of course, losing Jeff Petrie as he went over to Detroit, Joel Edmondson going over to Washington. Look, Montreal is still in a rebuild, but extending Cole Caulfield is a fantastic move and getting a young center in Alex Newhook. So Montreal gets an A-. New Jersey Devils, this is a team that did a lot of fantastic moves this offseason. And getting Timo Meier to an 8x8 since coming over from San Jose at the trade deadline. Extending Jesper Bratt to an 8x7, establishing that core for the next eight years. Bringing in a solid veteran, a veteran solid winger in Tyler Toffoli from Calgary. And losing a speedy guy in Miles Wood and Damian Severson to Columbus. Not to mention Mackenzie Blackwood going over to San Jose. There's really not any moves I can bash here. New Jersey Devils get an A. New York Islanders get an A- solely because of the Ilya Sorokin deal. That is an amazing move by them. Scott Mayfield, Pierre Engvall to a 7-year deal. Questionable, but hey, it's Lou Lamoriello. He does what he always does. So New York Islanders get an A-. New Jersey Rangers, I love the head coaching hire. I've always been a fan of him. Keandre Miller being extended is a good move for him. I think that's a solid bridge deal until he gets his massive extension. And I will say for the New York Rangers, I like the moves they have made this offseason. Another team that I love the moves this offseason is the Ottawa Senators, bringing over Joonas Korpisalo to be their starting goaltender, getting Vladimir Tarasenko to be a solid veteran, getting Dominique Kubalik in the deal with Alex DeBrincat. I like what Ottawa's done. They're pretty solid. Philadelphia Flyers, they're very abysmal, and I'm not a fan of what Philadelphia has done. John Tortorella is probably gone at the end of the year. But yeah, I'm not a fan of these moves. Philadelphia Flyers get a D here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm not impressed. Pittsburgh Penguins get a B+. Kyle Dubas being general manager, fantastic move. Extending Tristan Jarry's good. Bringing in Riley Smith and Erik Karlsson in trades and getting Ryan Graves. I love what the Pittsburgh Penguins have accomplished. And the last three teams we got to mention, Tampa Bay gets an A. I like what they did with Tanner Jeannot. I like what Brandon Hagel, extending those guys. Bringing over Connor Sherry. He feels like a Tampa Bay Lightning type of player. And them losing older guys in Killhorn, Colton, and Perry. I love what the Tampa Bay Lightning have done. The Toronto Maple Leafs, an A-, extending Austin Matthews was a fantastic move and one of the main reasons why they get an A-. And the Washington Capitals, they get an A- as well. This is a team that did very well extending Tom Wilson, bringing in Max Pacioretty, bringing in Joel Edmondson. I think the Washington Capitals did pretty solid and are going to try to get back into the playoffs, similar to what Pittsburgh did a while ago. So, that was our NHL offseason review here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And until next time, we do shows Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and have a good one.